as far as being safe and stuff like that. That's what the PPE is for. You know, that's why it's there.
Yeah, you really protect yourself. I mean, I've been in inspections where you've gone in there, and I see how you take care of making sure that everyone is, especially you're safe. Before the pandemic, you used to go in there with your suit. So, I mean,
yeah, and my
precautions have always been taken care of.
Right. And I'm a fastidiously clean individual anyway. I need to wipe stuff down in my personal house. I need stuff clean and shiny. So that's it just transfers over. Oh, hey, look, there's my presentation. That's very nice.
Alrighty. Are we back? Is everybody back?
Yeah.
Okay, in the chat, I want everybody to tell me size, rate number 5 if you guys are alert, or number 1 if you're falling asleep on us.
10.
Aha, here we go. 5, 5. Woohoo! Keep going. A 3? What's a 3?
It's the middle of the road.
Oh my gosh. Guys, thank you so much for your patience. I know this is a lot virtually, but it's very important to have that real estate contract breakdown. We're going to have a PowerPoint presentation by Jesse Mills, who's going to go into the importance of a home inspection. And then Pedro will talk about a little bit about the real estate, the realtor's responsibilities to you as the home buyer. So Jesse, you want me to go ahead and keep on clicking down when you tell me to?
Yeah, I'll just say next. All right. So
my favorite word,
next, yeah. So hi, everybody. My name is Jesse Mills. I'm the owner of Straightforward Home Inspections. And I want to talk to you today and illustrate to you a little bit what the importance of a home inspection is. So all inspectors in Illinois, whether home inspectors in Illinois, I should say, on this slide, this is just an example of a minimum amount of stuff that we're supposed to tell you. That in stuff, I mean information about the home, because you want to make an intelligent decision when you're buying a house. You know, you're going through all this stuff. You're building up your credit. You're jumping through this hoop, jumping through that hoop, getting everything else like set, and ready to go and get yourself primed in order to like own a home. And now you want to find out, now believe me, there's problems with every house. Almost every single house is a problem. You just have to know which problems are you able to handle. So if you have all the information, then you can make an intelligent decision. So by law, Illinois requires pre-purchase home inspectors to tell their clients a minimum amount of information. There are organizations of which I am a part. Next. Evie, next. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So, okay, I'm an ASHI certified inspector. That's an acronym for American Society of Home Inspectors. We have higher standards. We helped write the state standards, and then we go above and beyond them. So not all inspectors are the same. Not all organizations are the same. ASHI is known as having one of the strictest requirements in Illinois for their members. There's a thing called continuing education. So continuing education is every 2 years I have to renew my license. I need 12 credit hours over those 2 years. That's 6 a year. ASHI requires me to have 20 a year. So that's 40 credit, CE. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly doing stuff. And so, having someone who knows their stuff is better for you. I, also have a construction background of 25 years. I helped build stuff from the ground up, and I'm not like I'm not an accountant who became a home inspector. So that's it's a little real world knowledge. Next. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so you got this, how about that house? Everyone like that house? That's like move-in ready, huh? Right there. Just don't put a fan next to that wall. You might be in for a surprise there. All right, so that house though, right there, has some major systems and components that are failing. Here's some of the major stuff that I'm gonna look at. I'm gonna look at your roofing, the exterior, the structure, the bones of the building, the electrical system, the heating and cooling, plumbing, the insulation and the ventilation, and finally the interior. All of these things affect one another. So if you have a problem with a roof, you're going to have a problem with the interior. If you have a problem with the electrical, you might have a problem with the interior as far as a fire is concerned. You know, they're all interconnected. And so my job is to let you know how these things, one of my jobs, I should say, is how these things affect one another. And just try to make it clear and simple so that you understand. So this next slide right here, some examples of what I look for. Look at that roof. The roof there is, you can see it on the showing. You're walking through, someone saying, hey, yeah, you know, you're imagining a whole bunch of different stuff. You can work on your cars in the backyard. You can put down grass, whatever you're doing, you're imagining stuff. And on the showing, you're not going to see the roof. My job is to let you know about that roof. And so I climbed up there. Next. And look at that. So who can tell me just use one or two words, what's wrong with that picture?
Nobody wants to say what's
Yeah,
wrong.
it's missing shingles. Exactly, Marta. So yeah, there you go. Right up on the top. It's missing the ridge shingles. So, and rain is going to hit there first, isn't it? All this rain, if that house hasn't been fixed since then, that house is wet with all that rain that came down. So there you go. Next.
Trying.
Yeah.
Hey,
You didn't
Jesse,
see
can
the-
I cheat and answer some of your questions or no? I'm not included in this.
Well, I would rather if you think you want to answer them, that's fine. But if I want to engage the audience though.
I know.
Yeah. All right, so I got close to the chimney right there, and look at that hole. See that hole? That's where it's right. And not to mention the chimney's kind of crudted up, and there's more than one layer of shingles on there, so that's always something. Look at that. Water's going right in there. That's a good job, Evie. Right there. The next one. Boom. There it is. Right to the inside of the house. Rain falling down there. So, yeah, that used to be an old plumbing stack. An old plumbing stack came through there. But, on the when you were on the showing, you didn't see that. So, now you know. And then someone like Steve, I would put it in the report, and Steve would address it. He'd say, hey, listen, we need, because in my report, I'd say you need to repair it, replace it. And that would be immediate, and I'll tell you, it's better, I don't know, or you can ask for a credit to, have that stuff fixed. But that there's items on a report that are called summary issues. And then that's what things like Steve would address, those summary items. I comment on maintenance things, but the summary items are safety and functionality. There's a top of a roof. And now I'm going to be looking for, now you might be concerned, like, what am I going to be looking for there? So it's a top of a 2-flat in Chicago on the northwest side. And I'm going to go look at the parapet walls in the front, right above with the living room, because that's a place I know where water is going to get into if the space between those stones are not properly sealed. Next. So there you go. So I take a look, and they have this caulking in there in between the limestone caps. And so now when I get into the building, I'm going to look at the living room right above the windows, and I'm going to see if there's any water intrusion issues. But that is a maintenance item, and it needs to be taken care of. So there you go. Next. As inspectors, we have limitations. I can't tell you a lot about a snow-covered roof. I'm not there to shovel snow. I'm not there to blow all the snow off the roof. It's just out of the scope. I can tell you that the house in the background that doesn't have a lot of insulation in the attic because the snow is melting off. And the garage doesn't have any heat, so the inside and outside temperatures are closer together and the snow is not melting. But the winter time is a time where, you know, you have more limitations because of weather conditions. Another thing I look at that I want to let you know about is the exterior. So generally I'll walk around the house and I can tell a lot about what I should be looking for on the inside of a house by seeing what conditions exist on the outside. And like I said, mind you, you're buying a used house. There's going to be something wrong with everything. Here's one thing. Those below grade downspouts, you should take, I always recommend, when I bought my house, that's the first thing I did was move those downspouts right up and out of the ground, because you don't want all that water coming from the roof in one localized point and going down in there, especially in an older system. Those pipes underneath there are just clay, and they're short pieces, like 2 feet long, and you don't know if there's any gaps or cracks, and so you don't want water going next to your foundation. Next. So there's a little cutaway, a little example. So I always recommend, this is a maintenance issue. This is nothing you would bring up with Steve. This is, you know, you would cap that below grade down, cap that stuff, and then bring that that water at least, you know, at least 6 feet away from the house. Next. So here's the thing. So I'm going to be looking for water intrusion issues when I'm on the inside of the house on that. I also inspect decks. Did you know May is National Deck Month? You know, especially now, people are going to be home a lot and the weather's going to be nicer, and you may be out on your deck a little bit more than you thought. So whether you're working out there or doing whatever. So I get under there, I check it out. There's who knows what's wrong with that? Pedro, you can answer this one if you want, but what's wrong with that?
He's really looking.
Yeah.
Need another set of eyes, Pedro?
Feel free, audience.
The wood is being compromised.
Yeah, no, it's that board against the house is the first thing that you do on when you're building a deck. It's called the ledger board. That's what it should look like. So you got like nothing holding it to the house, something holding it to the house. See that? You got these.
Oh yeah, the cutout.
Nothing. Now you need these big bolts in there, like Evie's showing you. Boom, bam. That's perfect. You got a nice
bullets.
Yeah, that's perfect right there. The other one's not. So that goes on the summary. That's something that I bring up because that's a structural issue. There you go. Next. All right, what about that sidewalk? What about this? And look at this. Pedro, this is good for you because guess what? There you go. All right, what's up with that sidewalk?
That's potential for basement seepage.
Yeah, and Marcin, yeah, it is a trip hazard waiting to happen. Now, why do you think that's happening? Does everyone see the no, not weather, Marcin. Look at that little white square in the grass. Do you see that? So here's what happens. That is the clean out plug to the main waste line. And if a plumber came and put a wrench on that and opened it up and scoped that out, which is a service I also offer with a licensed sewer and water plumber, I would recommend that scope would be in there because there may be a crack because that plastic clean out is only plastic going down into the clay pipe. So what happens is that clay pipe is probably cracked. And now every time they flush the toilet, every time they run the kitchen, every time they do all that stuff, that water is leaking out the pipe and the sidewalk, and it's making that dirt underneath that sidewalk compress. And now the sidewalk is just surfing on that, and it's going down and down with every flush. So it's very important to know what's going on underneath your house because those repairs cost several thousands of dollars just to fix. Plumbers make a lot of money and they're not cheap. Now, not to mention you gotta bust up that sidewalk and re-pour it. Yep. All right, next.
Okay.
Oh, Oh, there you go. What's wrong with this picture? Now I'm looking at the siding and stuff like that. You know, so this is a wood frame house. You got vinyl siding on the top and you got brick siding on the bottom. That brick has nothing to do with structure. That's just there for stuff. But like that, like the top of that one building, those little pieces of stone, they're letting water in, and water freezes and then expands. Not to mention that siding's melted because someone decided to barbecue right there.
Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah. So they didn't damage it too bad, but at least they moved their grill. So yeah. So you know, and then you got caulking around the windows, which is a maintenance item. You need to take care of that stuff. So this is something I would comment on and let you know, because you're there and you're talking about you're there. You're even during this COVID stuff. You can be there. We can wear PPP, you know, PPE, and you can ask questions. You know what I'm saying? And that's it's integral to ask questions. You know, while we're there, because I need to explain how things work to you. And you know, even if you know a lot, you know, I have a different perspective on stuff. All right, next.
Was that the next slide? This one?
Yeah, I think so. All right, so we have structure. The bones of everything is very important as well. So what we're gonna do here is I wanna ask people, Pedro, you can chime in if you want to. What is wrong with that picture? This is in a basement. It's the main beam. Like you have the foundation walls, and that's the main beam in the center of the house holding stuff up. What's wrong with that? Marcin, anybody?
I don't see no
Well, it looks
support
like it's
beam.
bending.
Yeah, it is bending, it is moving, but they took those joists and they cut them. That's a 2x8. Now they notched them out like that. That's really just a 2x4 now. So they really weakened the structure. And here's what happens when you start walking on it. Boom. See that? Look at that. It's cracking on the one end. It's cracking down below. You know, but what I like about that, my favorite thing about it, is when they were trying to sell the house and they wanted to paint up the basement, they even painted inside the little crack. The big crack. So there's the support columns, Pedro, right there. Boom, boom. And all those joists on both sides came in, they were notched on either side of that. So that was a major structural thing, and that needs to be addressed, and that's not cheap.
Nope.
Next. All right, cracks and foundations happen, but you need to take care of them properly. You know, concrete does two things. It cures, gets harder over time, and it cracks. And so you need to, that's an improper repair that you're looking at. That's a Band-Aid type repair that's still gonna let water in from the exterior and work on the foundation. I have to get in crawl spaces. There I am getting in there working for you. Oh, look, the N95 mask that I cannot find anymore. All right, next.
Hey, I remember that photo.
Yeah. It's like, I had those things all the time. Now I can't find them. It's like, boom, that's okay. I ordered a Batman mask. All right.
You
All
guys
right.
give me a discount and everything. I got you with an N95.
Well, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's okay. Actually, I have twin respirators. I put those on, so you know, so those are better. I wear those in Jewel too. All right. Let's see. That's a crack right there that's repaired correctly. They did that. So if you went down the crawl space like me, if you were adventurous, you'd say, hey, what's this? I would have let you know in the report that that thing is okay. All right. That stuff is as hard as steel. Not only is it a structural repair, I mean, not only is it a leak repair, it's a structural repair. It looks like it has the continuity of peanut butter or something, but that's what an epoxy injection is right there. See those little plastic tubes? They come in, boom, boom, and they take care of that. So that's a good thing. Hey, things happen to the house, and if you maintain them and take care of them, it's going to be easier to sell your house later on. You know, maintenance is the act of pride and joy in home. Yes, it is a permanent fix, Martha. Maintenance is the act of pride and joy in home ownership. Next.
You're not going through the diagram there?
Oh, I just did.
Oh,
With the, yeah, with all the little, you know, this is what they put those holes in there so they can inject their polyurethane or epoxy in there. Here's one thing. Yeah, right. Those little tubes. So that's why, and then that tube will only take up so much. And so they need to put another tube in to, like, you know, get all, you know, get the whole crack. So, you know, it's just like a big caulking tube. All right. Electrical system. Now, I always tell my clients that, you know, buying a home and spending money on it is like making a sandwich. So you got to start out with 2 good pieces of bread. All right. So, right. We already talked about the roof and stuff like that. So that's the top piece of bread. We were looking at the basement and the crawl space. We were looking at the bottom piece of bread. Now the electrical and plumbing, that's like the mustard and mayonnaise in the sandwich. It makes everything flow together. But here's one thing that you should not do. Do not paint your outlets. That's a fire hazard. So and when I go into like houses, especially like from the 1970s and stuff like that, all the outlets are painted. So I have to recommend to change all the outlets. And if that's like 15 or 20 or 30, even though it's like $5 or less than $10 to fix each one, that money will add up with multiple outlets. So you got that. There you go. Next. That's an issue under the deck that I saw, that if you were there, you wouldn't need an inspector to tell you that's kind of, you know, a fire hazard right there. There's other things going on there too besides electrical. Those joist hangers back, those joist hangers are rusting out above that repair, above those things. So that's, you know, that's also a deck issue that I brought up on that inspection. Then you got water, you know, you got like the siding is missing. And you got the electrical getting ready to, you know, just.
It's a hot mess.
It's a hot mess. That's a good one. I like that. Yeah. Good job. All right. I also look at this. What's wrong with this?
Double tap.
Yeah. So double tap. All right. Now, hey, I'll tell you, I brought this up. All right. And my office is in Harwood Heights. And here's the deal. This is a good thing. I'm not a code enforcer. Okay. So even though all my recommendations are rooted in code, I'm best practice and functionality. And what happened here is I did an inspection in Harwood Heights for a client from the Northwest Side Housing Center. And I looked at their electrical panel and they had some double taps just like this, except the picture, what's indicated in there, that breaker is not meant for 2 wires, but there are breakers that can be. Next. So here's a type of breaker, square D type HOM, and it has 2 wires with the right next to the symbol for copper, Cu. That's the chemical symbol for copper. That says I can, and over there is a chemical symbol for aluminum. I can use one aluminum wire on this type of breaker, or I can use 2 copper wires because it's rated for that. So when I did my inspection for the client in Harwood Heights, I told her it was all okay because she had breakers like this that were rated for that. Then Harwood Heights, people came in and told her she had to replace the panel anyway. And I went heads up with the building department. I'm like, you're wrong. And they're like, well, no, they got to change it anyway. We don't allow double taps. It was like talking to a brick wall. So. You know, I couldn't, you know, and even though I supported everything with an email that proved exactly how I was correct and they were wrong, they still made her do it. But anyway, what's that? Yeah.
Question. So when you do home inspections in different cities other than Chicago, you might end up with some situation with their city inspector. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, because every town, that's why Chicago has, codes are a national thing. You got ICC, International Code Council, you got the International Building Codes, you got, the National Electric Code, the Plumbing Code. All these things are either state or national. And every town is going to subscribe to a different year. For example, right now, Chicago subscribes to the 2006 National Electric Code. If they were to subscribe to the 2014 or 17 National Electric Code, their electrical panels and things would look different. Everything is different. So it's not my job to come in and tell you what that particular town, whether it's Cicero, Melrose Park, Harwood Heights, Franklin Park, it's not my job to tell you what their little code things are. Normally my inspections are have more information and are more encompassing. You know, some people want metal things versus plastic things, and they, you know, and stuff like that. So you might run into something like that, just to let you know. But I told this electrical inspector I was right, and I knew he was wrong, and he knew he was wrong, but they still made her do it. All right, so this wire right here that I'm I'm getting ready to touch, it's just laying there. I tested it to see if it was energized, and it was. As the next slide will indicate. Boom. So I tested it with an electrical tester, and it's like just really close to touching that panel. So I'm glad I, you know, tested the panel too to make sure that everything was okay. Now here's another thing. In this, I also make sure that the right breakers are in the right panel. This, if you look over to the left, this is a Murray panel. Murray is a different company than what the breakers have. Next, so look at all those breakers, all those yellow breakers. That's the type that I told you about that can accept those two wires, but those breakers aren't allowed in that panel, in that Murray panel. They're not made to go in there, even though they might fit. Next, that job cost $2,200 to replace all those breakers, just the breakers, because it was so many. And you know, so it'll say right there, the Murray panel said, the only branch breakers which may be installed in the panel board are those types tested in the panel board, listed in the panel board breakers column. And it has this alphabet soup right there, MPT, MPHT, those are all just different types of breakers, but not the kind that were in the panel. So, you know, when someone said, you know, I saved that client a lot of money that way. So boom, done with that. Now look at this. This is right over the washer and dryer in the laundry room. The electric dryer is loosely plugged into is plugged into the loosely, not even secured, 240 volt like electric line right near all that water. That's a no-brainer, but they still tried to sell their house like that, and everyone thought it was cool, but that needs to be addressed, like, seriously right away.
Hey, you promised me you weren't going to take a picture of my basement.
All right. So, yeah, right. I get up in the attics too, not only crawl spaces, back a little. Oh yeah, so you got that. Yeah, so that little, you see those little white tubes in there and that wire, that's an old type of wiring in houses. I always, you know, when I do an inspection, I find out the age of the home. And then when I find out the age of the home, it instantly connects with my knowledge base inside my head of what the building practices were for that particular time period. So in this time period, they used an electrical system called knob and tube wiring, which insurance companies do. It worked fine, but insurance companies don't like it. And there's a better way to do stuff today. And when I get up in the attic, I also want to take that tester like I did in the other panel and see if they're energized. Because if you're going to go up there and do work and put more insulation, because there's not enough insulation in that attic, then, you know, you're going to run into problems if those wires are energized. The heating, I also look at the heating system. So let's take a look at that. Who can type what's wrong with that picture?
The exhaust.
What about it?
The piping. I see it kind of broken.
It's like rusted.
Rusted.
Yeah, it needs to, yes, Desiree, it needs to be replaced, but replaced properly. Here's why that pipe is rusting. That's a galvanized steel vent tube. Galvanized steel is a metal that's coated with zinc keep it right there, Evie.
Okay.
Galvanized metal is a metal that's coated with a zinc coating that helps it resist rust. But the gas, the combustion gas from the heat from the furnace is very acidic and will hasten the process of rust. But that's not supposed to be happening. That stuff is supposed to be getting up and out, right? So next. There you go. So this,
there's no pitch.
right, there's no pitch. So there, like, it's net, well, there is, it's negative. So if this hot gas is trying to go from the bottom of that, on the left, from the top of that furnace, up and out, and it goes over, and it tries to get out, it's still, some of it's gonna backdraft back in there and sit right there. So it needs to go up and out like a plane taking off. And so that's going to be hard to do though, because they can lower the pipe near the furnace, but then it might kind of dip down towards that door. That's why they did that, because they wanted it above the doorway so people didn't burn their head on the hot pipe. So when we're together on an inspection, I'm like your general practitioner, doctor. So I come in and I know a lot about different things, and I just say, listen, you need to get a specialist to come in here and take care of that. So the HVAC would be like your heart specialist, and then your electrical would be like your neurologist, and things like that. So I'm there as a general thing. When I'm on an inspection, I'm looking at so many different things. It's very, very, it can be overwhelming, but not for me, because, the way I like to roll is you're asking questions too anyway, and I kind of piece it together for you. All right, next. Look at that. Okay, what's wrong with that picture? Somebody can type. Has anybody ever maintained their furnace? What's one thing that you got to do when you maintain your furnace?
That filter?
Yeah, the filter. What's the problem?
Shouldn't be on the side, not on top.
So how are you going to change that filter, Pedro?
You can't, because it's the exhaust is blocking it.
It's the Tin Man, yeah. That's funny. Yes, the exhaust is blocking it. That needs to be taken care of totally. Like, and you know what? And a major HVAC company put that in. I'm not going to say who they are, but they're all over the radio. They install that stuff. So I don't recommend that you would take apart your exhaust portion of the furnace, the combustible gas vent, or the hazardous combustion gases, to like leak into your house. All right. Hey, look at that one. Yeah. Go ahead. Keep it on there, Evie.
Okay.
Bam. What about there? What's wrong with that? I'll give you a hint. The word starts with an E. Everything. Everything is wrong with that. We're talking about pitch. We're talking about, you got the water heater going up into the furnace. You got nothing going there. That's, it's taped improperly. That is plainly somebody who didn't know what they were doing. And they just went to Home Depot and, didn't even watch a YouTube video. They just try to put things together.
This is a DIY gone bad.
Yeah. That was a flip.
Jesse,
There's no
what's
pitch
the black
on that
thing in the?
What's that?
There is
What's
no
the
pitch
black-
on that water heater whatsoever. Negative.
Right. What are you asking, Steve?
Empty duct. There's a black tube in there or something?
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
That's a damper. A damper is like a little lid. Because there's a lever on top, so you would close one way, then close the other way. This is a property that if they were doing this, it was a flip. So somebody bought the old house, they went to inside and they try to, make the inside look better, without taking care of all the sand, they made that sandwich look like it had like thick red tomatoes and like romaine lettuce and lots of meat and stuff like that. But then all the work in the house was just like totally like bad. And on that, yeah, it is very scary. So, and on that particular inspection, I was working with a realtor who works with the Northwest Side Housing Center, and I can't tell you to buy the house or not, but she's like, all right, listen, we're done. You can't buy this house. She didn't want her client to buy this house because this was just cost too much money, and there was just so many things wrong with it. So it was money well spent, just to know that you're not going to get into a house that is going to break your spirit and your heart and your wallet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right there. All right, next. That's the way that stuff's supposed to be.
That to me doesn't look like a hard fix, though.
Yeah, that's completely a hard fix, because the whole thing, they got it all vented out, and they got it all. It's just going all in the wrong spots. There was nothing right about that whole property. If you were there, there was just nothing right about it, and they didn't pull any permits anyway.
Oh.
And then if Chicago came back and said, oh yeah, they would make Chicago. I'm a home inspector. A Chicago building inspector can come and make you rip out everything and redo it.
Yep.
Point blank. And then you can't live in there. Yeah, you can't live in there until it's all fixed too. So
that reminds me of the robot in Lost in Space.
Yeah. Danger, Will Robinson, right? All right, next. We got to kind of run through this.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. All right, now I'll just talk briefly. I also look at the cooling. I'll tell you what's wrong with this. Even though I couldn't start the air conditioner in the wintertime because I need 60 degrees in order not to break the air conditioner, it's leaning against the deck. All right, and when it turns on in the summertime, it's going to vibrate. You also, go ahead, you can go ahead, keep going. You also need to clean that air conditioner. You see how it's all gunked up in there? Nope.
You told me to keep going.
No. Okay. All right. So you'll have how it's all gunked up in there. That's you need to clean that out. But that right there is so far gone that you need an HVAC tech to come out, take that cage off, and clean that stuff chemically.
It looks really nasty.
Yeah. And guess what? That air conditioner, if you used it, is going to blow out pretty soon. All right. I also look at plumbing. I'm getting dizzy.
Sorry.
All right. So I also look at plumbing. If you notice that this is backwards, I don't know what I can tell you about that. It still kind of works. It's probably against some plumbing code, but I'm not concerned about codes. So you got your shower and your tub on one side and you got the drain on the other. So that was in a multi-unit building and they were all like that. I also I test your appliances. I make sure your appliances are doing okay. I was testing a garbage disposal and it started leaking. And I also see that there's an open wire there. Nope. Open wire right next to where it's going. No, the other picture.
The other one? Okay.
Yeah, right there. So you got a break in the flexible cable that's supplying the electricity to that. So wire plus sharp metal plus electricity
and water
plus water is not a good combination.
No.
Next, yeah, and here's I was running the sink, so you got water dripping directly into the electrical box. I laugh when I saw this. It's just and I shut the water off real quick. I look at water heaters too. I let you know that costs a lot.
Hold on, Jesse. These are perfect examples of you guys are not going to go and look at this stuff. You guys are going to be so distracted with other things going on in that house that you do need somebody to go in there and just look at the mechanics of it. It's very important that you guys, this is why I asked Jesse to give us pictures, because you need to see what you're not going to look at or you're not even going to think about taking a look at.
Yep, true. That's true. All right, next. All right, okay, now keep that one right there. See that bathroom? This really looks like that bathroom looks pretty good, right? Everything's nice and clean. Even though I had to like test the water and flush the toilet and start the shower, the toilet was a little loose, and subsequently it was leaking into the crawl space below, onto the main structural support for the whole house in the middle. So you wouldn't have known that toilet was leaking until I got my little butt in there and checked it out. So there it is. And on the other side,
Next.
yeah, next one. And on the other side, it was rusting out just as well. So what I called for in the inspection report was further evaluation by a structural engineer with the repair or replacement as necessary by a qualified contractor. And they the seller had to have a structural engineer come out at their expense, and the structural engineer signed off on it. But now you also need a plumber to take off that toilet and replace the little $2, $3 wax ring that was causing it to leak in the first place.
So this is what you guys see, and this is what Jesse checks.
Right. Bam. All right. So insulation and ventilation, real quick. So, like I talked about in the one picture, there's not enough insulation up there. If you want to get up there and be a weekend warrior and put more insulation up there, be careful because the insulation that you see in there, even and all around that Red Bull can, is an insulation that is built typically in houses from like the 1940s and 50s. And it's a vermiculite. You flip a coin, half of it contained asbestos. Okay, and there's a little. It was under the name Zonolite, and I put a link in the report for a company for the Zonolite Insulation Trust might help you take care of it. But here's what happens in the inspection report. It's not. I don't make it your problem. I make it the seller should take care of that. The seller should have it tested. And if it's not asbestos and it's heads, great. But if it's tails and it's asbestos, then it's going to cost money to abate that and get that out of the attic. So I put that on the seller. There's no reason you should go into the house and endanger yourself. All right, next one, ventilation as well. Exhaust fans in bathrooms are nice to have. You take an hour shower, right? And you want to turn on the fan and let that stuff go up. That's one thing. It goes up into the attic, but I got to make sure that it's going to the exterior and not into your attic space, causing mold problems. So as I climb through that attic, and next, I see the top of the fan box. Right there, the black box at the bottom of the picture, there's no tube bringing it out. And you see the little tiny black spots right there. That's going to be mold. Now, in the report, I have to say, I suspect it's mold. Get it checked out. Can you go back to the thing? Get it checked out to see if it's mold, and then, and then abate it. But for me to you, just treat it like it's mold. Save your money right there, and then they'd have to have it sprayed. They should have it sprayed. Mold in an attic, though, isn't as bad as mold in the basement. Mold in the attic is more about deterioration of the sheathing. So it's eating that sheathing, so that when you have to replace the roof, you're gonna have to replace more stuff. It's not really an air quality issue, and I know. And down below, if it's in the basement, though, you breathe about 40% of the air that you get from your basement. So that's where people say, I'm allergic to mold. Well, there's lots of mold outside too. So, but you just don't want to concentrate it in the house because that's what you're trying to get away from. All right, next. Okay, talking about those combustion gases. This is a chimney. It's a tall chimney, but I saw these repairs. Intermittent, these dark areas here and then there and then there. So I suspect that there's going to be problems with the flue inside of it, letting those combustion gases work on the inside of the chimney. So I climb up there and I check it out. Next.
Hey, Jesse, real quick. Yeah. Would that be an indication of that chimney not having a liner inside?
Correct. Well, that is an indication of the chimney not having a liner, or the liner has it's not, if it's metal, it's one big long liner, but if it's clay, they're pieced together, right? So right there, the top of that chimney was clay, and they're pieced together with mortar. So go ahead to the next one. So I look inside the chimney, and there it is. So you see that little gap? See that gap right here? No, the other one.
Finger.
All right, you see that gap right there? So that should have mortar in there. And there's gaps all the way through there. So when their furnace and their water heater is on, those combustion gases are working out at different levels of the chimney and deteriorating the mortar. So the real fix for that is to repair the liner or add a metal liner to that, not keep repairing the tall chimney every 2 or 3 years. It's just going to drain money away from you. And then pretty soon, you know, the chimney could just get worse and worse. And if you don't do it, the tall chimney like that will weaken and fall down.
So would it be true? Would it be true to say that the heat, the condensation that is happening in that chimney is making this mortar deteriorate?
Yeah, it's the combustion gases. It works on mortar just like on that metal thing with that metal vent with the rust. It's very acidic and it causes that to happen. So there you go. All right, next. All right, interior, the last section here. You know, they built houses back differently back in the day, and so I still have to let you know about, like, you know, the best safety practices. You don't want Junior going to the top of those stairs, bumping his head or her head on the concrete basement floor down below. So I always recommend guardrails right there, you know, so that people don't, so kids don't fall. My worst case scenario is always involve children. I let you know about potential water issues. If I see something like that, and you know, paneling's easy. If there was water in the basement, it'll soak it up and warp it out like that. I say, hey, you know what? You know, ask for the seller for a disclosure or what happened if they didn't. Because when you sign your real estate contract, the seller discloses certain things. They're supposed to disclose problems that they've had or whatever. And if they didn't do it in the contract, then, you know, I bring it up. Not to mention these tiles on the floor. They're the old tiles from the 40s and 50s, and they contain asbestos. So I checked to see what shape they're in too. So you may or may not have to remove those depending on their condition.
Well, these look like they're in bad shape.
Well, it depends. Okay, you're talking about asbestos. We're talking about asbestos, like insulation, pipe wrap. That's very friable, or it's easy to crumble, and it makes it easily floatable in the air that you can breathe it in. The tiles on the floor, they're not so friable unless they're broken and chipped in places from like water damage. So yes, that's you know, when you have water damage like that, in that I escalated it to remove those tiles because there was loose pieces all over the place. Yep. All right, next. All right, there's some stuff. The new carpet in a flipped house, but I saw stains on the base molding. So I said, hey, you know, everything was dry. Couldn't find any, you know, active water intrusion, but I asked that the seller disclose what happened there as well. They just tried to paint over it and didn't use it. Didn't use Kills. So that was trying to put makeup. It's like lipstick on a pig. All right. So let's go next. I also test your, like I said, all your appliances, but carbon monoxide is a very, you know, when you bake in an oven, it lets out carbon monoxide. And I test those levels. You know, I test the levels on gas burning furnaces and stuff like that too, and boilers to see how much carbon monoxide each appliance is producing. And I let you know if it's dangerous. What about next? So I did on this one, and I tested,
Oops, sorry.
oh, yeah, there it goes. So carbon monoxide is, you know, different levels affect you, you know, like 406 was making people sick, parts per million, 406 parts per million. A carbon monoxide detector goes off at 35 parts per million. So that, you know, would make, you know, every time you were baking cookies or baking a turkey, you're like, man, I just don't feel good. I mean, especially in the wintertime when you got all the windows closed up. That oven ended up getting replaced. It was part of the contract, and it got replaced with a new, better oven. All right, that's a garage door into a place. It's not a garage that's in your backyard somewhere. This is an attached garage, and for the same reason, that gadget that I had in the last picture, when I first got it, I went into my garage, I started my car, closed the doors. I should say, wait, in order. I closed the doors, started my car, and then counted to 5. My gadget with a car in the garage went up to 800 parts per million in 5 seconds. So that door that leads into your living space that you're raising your family, that has to self-close and be airtight and fire rated so that at least 20 minutes fire rating on that. And that's the minimum fire rating on a door anyway. So everybody, what do you have in your mind? And this is a big issue with me. It's hard to like explain value to people. So on average, how much money would you expect to have on hand for a home inspection? Now you guys can type this. All right. Well, none of those answers are wrong. All right. It depends. All right. None of those answers are wrong. Like a smaller house is going to cost less than a larger house. An older house is going to cost more than a younger house because, you know, with me, it's about time and effort. And, you know, if for example, if it's at your expense, right, and it's not at closing, I get my money that day. But if you had the sellers, you know, to inspect it, and, you know, do you think that they would, who thinks that the seller would get the cheapest inspection they could find?
Yep.
Right? All right. So here, I tell people, you know, for me, when I was buying my house, I saved up $1,500. The average inspection, and don't let this number stick in your head. The average inspection in the U.S. is about $500, but that's based on the average size of a home. So if it's, you know, like today, this afternoon, I got to go inspect a 3,700 square foot home. And it was a bungalow that got blown out in Ravenswood Manor. So I'm going to go check that out. That's more than 500. So the thing is the money that you spend for a home inspection is a one-time thing. You don't get a chance to go back and say, oh, let me have another home inspection. Right? Yeah. Let me have another inspection because this one, he didn't catch everything. If you want to save money on a home inspection on a house that you're going to buy, and when you sign on the bank, I'm spending $400,000. I'm spending $285,000. What I want to do is find the cheapest inspection I can. I don't think that's good logic. I think you should, it's not just about price though, but you want to ask questions. Okay, and you guys can go to my website, straightforwardhomeinspections.com. You just can say it right into the Google, and it'll bring them up my website. You know, you'll find out what you know, like, are they ASHI certified? What do they offer? Is there any perks that they offer for free? How long, you know, are they going to be there? How do they do their inspections? Are their reports easy to understand? Because if you get a gobbledygook report and it doesn't make sense to you and to everybody, and to everybody else, it's really not going to be conducive to everything. And then this is where I get to plug in my stuff. So every home inspection, multifamily and a single family, I give limited warranties for free. I eat this cost every year. I spend about $12,000 a year just to make sure my clients got limited warranties. And that's a 100-day inspection guarantee with a $500 thing on appliances, a $500 it's like a home warranty for a limited amount of time. So you can make a claim up to $500 if like things that I found in good working order that day on the inspection went bad between 100 days from the inspection or 22 days after closing. It's $2,000 on structural stuff found in good condition. Sewer guard, I give you $2,000 towards your main water line if that messes up and if it was found in good condition. Your main waste line, I give you something called mold safe. So we already talked about mold. So if you are in a place and you're looking at a place that has furniture and on the final walkthrough, the dresser is gone or the clothes are out of the closet and you see some mold, and you can make a claim on with my mold safe and get up to $2,000 to remediate that. I put all your appliances on a thing called recall check for free. And I just did this with a client that had an electric furnace, and the furnace came from 1999, and it came back, and it said, this furnace was on a recall. This is what the problem was. This is how the company fixes it, and this is who to call to get this done. And so it's really plain and simple, lets you know what's up, and it's editable. So later on, if you buy new stuff, you can put that new stuff. And I give you that, that's free forever. Then I give you a 5-year roof leak guarantee, up to $3,000 aggregate. That has a $500 deductible. But if I give the roof 2 thumbs up and it leaks 2.5 years later, you get to make a claim up to $3,000. And it's aggregate, like you could do it whatever, how many ever times, up to 3,000. And then there's also, contractors. I have contractors that that I vet and that I make sure that they do good work, and they're in a binder that I'll give you. Now, that's what I was talking about with the money. All right. Now, let's say that first house doesn't work out. Now, what do you do? Right. So I think you should save your money just in case, because if the first house works out, great, then you're going to have some money left over. But if it doesn't work out, you're going to have to hire another, and have another inspection on another house that you found. So I always recommend that people should, save up at least $1,500 if you can for the home inspection. And Evie, I also have, I'm giving every inspection something called Homebuyer. And Homebuyer is an app that I give you for free, and it'll give you maintenance reminders as time goes by. So, hey, clean your gutters, change your furnace filter, and it's an app, and it's things like just show up. And you can, like, if you do projects in your house, you can put all the receipts in there. You can do, put all this information in the house that when you start, if you want to sell your house later on, that all that information is going to be very valuable. So
That's awesome, Jesse. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, thanks. I appreciate your guys' ears today, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you, Marcin, and everybody. And hey, just if you have any questions, you can always feel free to call me. All right.
Thank you so much, Jesse.